Hey, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Shack Chronicles. We're sitting here today with my good friend, Jim Johnson. He's all the way in Belize, but he actually owns a camp in Alaska, Katmai Lodge. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing pretty good, Dave. How you doing?
I'd be doing a whole lot better if I was sitting in Belize.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be sitting. Fortunately for us doing this thing, we got a couple nice windy, cloudy days that I don't mind taking off and fishing to do some backed up work and whatnot. But
Nice.
But
Well,
it's
I'm
been
glad to
really
have
good.
you on here. I'm glad to have you
Yes,
on here.
it's
So
great to be here.
how's the fishing been down there?
It's been really good. We're of course like all destination sort of places out of country. COVID's made travel difficult. So all the lodges in the region are down, all the guides are down, which selfishly, as far as fishing for me, has been pretty good. Just way less people on the water. It's starting to get busier now as people are getting vaccinated and people are being trapped in their homes for longer and longer. More people are wanting to get out. So thankfully, a few more people are getting down, keeping people working, keeping, a little bit of money in the guides' pockets anyway. And
That's good.
it's been good.
Yeah, it hasn't been that way here. There hasn't been much guiding here since March 15th last year. So
Yeah, that's tough.
It's been real tough. But enough about that stuff. So tell us what you got on the go up in Alaska.
Yeah, so I own Katmai Trophy Lodge up in Alaska. We're on the Naknek River, which is one of the major Bristol Bay tributaries. You get millions of salmon a year, and of course Dolly Varden, Arctic char, grayling, pike, lake trout. So we have just a really diverse fishery. We fish, of course, our home river. There's tribs to that river that we run up via jet boat. We can boat across Naknek Lake into Katmai National Park, fish, walk and wade little remote creeks and rivers over there. We do floatplane trips. So it's just really a unique area with all the fish and all the different species and techniques and bears. And I don't know if you know this, Dave, but that Katmai National Park there has the highest brown bear density in the world.
Wow.
So doing a lot of fishing with those big apex predators is just another thing that makes that area really special and something that even if I didn't have a lodge, that I'd plan to visit every year.
Now, I know a lot of people like myself have never experienced fishing around brown bears or anything like that. Tell us a little bit about what it can be like fishing around half a dozen brown bears that are like, have you ever had any incidents? I've never talked to anybody that has, but that's got to be something that goes through most people's minds that have never had that experience. So tell us from somebody that's had lots.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you always have you have something exciting periodically happen. I've been charged. We had to shoot a bear at the lodge one time that broke in and like literally run it out of the kitchen and shoot it as it's destroying everything and eating all the food in there.
Well, I've had the similar situations, but here we got black bears, which are nowhere.
Sure.
I mean, to somebody that's not used to bears, I guess any bear would be intimidating. But I mean, we're talking, like you said, an apex predator. Like a brown bear is not something that you ever want to tangle with.
Yeah, I mean, some of the bears up where we're at, I mean, they get up over 1,200 pounds. They're massive animals, but honestly, the way I always like to describe it to people, like every Saturday when people come in, I do a little orientation, and that usually involves some kind of bear talk, bear safety talk. And the way I like to describe it is that bears are like people, as in they only do things that are potentially risky or harmful to themselves when they have to. They start acting aggressive. They know that people, particularly if there's 2, 3, 4, 5 of you like together, like there often is when you're fishing, bears come close, you get together. It makes you look more intimidating, makes you look like something that's not to be messed with. And bears only do when they're hungry. And fortunately for us, our area gets the largest run of salmon in the world, and they're not very hungry. And so it changes the whole dynamic. A brown bear and a grizzly bear, a lot of people don't know this, but it's the same species. It's a subspecies. Yeah. And if you took a grizzly bear from Glacier National Park and you put it in Katmai National Park, it would then be a brown bear. And it would then go from smelling another bear 1,000 yards away on the next mountain, running over and chasing it off, to standing 5 feet away from another 1,000-pound dominant bear and eating salmon right next to each other without even blinking. That's the difference that food source makes, that the extra fat and the security of knowing that they're going to make it through the winter makes. I can tell you, if the salmon runs dried up tomorrow and there were no more salmon, it'd be a little different world up there. But right now, with millions of salmon, they're perfectly okay with fishing right next to a bunch of other bears and fishing right near people. And 99.9% of the time, they don't even hardly look at you.
They're just bears get aggressive towards each other?
No, not really. I mean, they do occasionally. They'll get aggressive towards each other. They'll get aggressive towards people, but it's pretty uncommon. And so a bigger bear every once in a while, particularly earlier in the year when the salmon have just gotten in. There's only a few salmon. They're real chrome. They're hard for the bears to catch. You'll see bigger bears trying to take salmon or push little bears off to take their salmon. You'll see, like, again, if there's a dominant bear and there's a smaller bear in a spot that he wants, he kind of flexes his prowess on him a little bit. He rolls up and he might throw a little growl or something in there, and that bear, again, always
just showing his dominance.
Right off. Just shows his dominance. Says, hey, this is my spot. A big bear every once in a while will do that to you too. You're fishing on a run that a bear likes, and they'll come over and say, hey, this is my spot. And you move
slide down.
And that's it. You go to the next run. And they'll do this, and they'll do the same thing to people too with fish, like particularly early in the year before there's any salmon, or when the salmon are just starting to come in, like they'll run over and try and take your fish if you're holding one, or if you're fighting one that's splashing around in the shallows, they'll run over. And then you just, release it real quick back into the water. Fish swims off. Bear chases the fish off. It's gone. It's a non-issue.
And he's sitting there trying to figure out, dude, I need that.
He's like, what are you doing, man?
Don't you need that to get through?
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty confused by the whole us releasing fish thing, but but it's pretty cool. So I've had all kinds of different encounters. Lots of bears. Lots of bears chasing fish that we're fighting, bears trying to take fish out of people's hands. I've had a couple charges when walking through tight brush and bumping into a sleeping bear. I've had.
Are these like daily encounters?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Daily encounters. So one of the rivers that we go to out of the lodge probably 4 or 5 days a week. Pretty much all of our guests go there at least, go there once. Is the Brooks River, and that's where the famous Brooks Falls is, that you see all the Nat Geo pics of, bears and salmon jumping waterfall and stuff. I mean, like, everybody's seen it. They don't necessarily know that's Brooks Falls, but that's the spot. That's where they take all those pictures. Virtually every photo, even if it's not the falls, virtually every photo that you see of a brown bear in general is taken there on that river. And it's a 1.5 mile long connector stream between two lakes, between Brooks Lake and Naknek Lake, with the falls in the middle. And it's not uncommon to go there and see 50 or 60 different bears in one day while walking around, on the falls and fishing.
Wow. That would be cool. That would be cool in itself. Like, just to.
Yeah, man, it's super cool. Yeah. It's really a unique experience. And that's just kind of the famous one. There's other places that have as many or near close to as many bears as it does during the peak, where you see them and they're just around. So I mean, you're
Just doesn't
fishing.
have that falls that Nat G wants.
It just does. Yeah, it just doesn't have the falls and it doesn't have all the tourists. But yeah, so you're fishing in and amongst them, pretty much on the majority of the creeks that we fish, and then even when you're on the home river of the Naknek, you're seeing bears on the water probably as many days as not, or more days than not. So you get all kinds of experiences, man. I could go on and on about stuff,
So,
but as far
so
as anything really,
it's kind of so like your guiding gig is kind of like a saltwater guide in a way. He gets up in the morning, goes out, gets on his boat. He goes out and he looks for birds. You just look for the bears. When you find the bears, you got the salmon.
yeah, I mean, we do to some extent, man. Mostly trying to stay away from the bears, but
Yeah, I figured that. But you found the salmon when you find the bears, because I
yeah,
mean, essentially
yeah,
that's what they're going for. So what
sure.
salmon species do you guys have there, like for that you target for fly fishing?
Sure. So I'll just go with in order that they run up. So first we
Perfect.
get the kings. That's that's the largest of the Pacific salmon. We get those running up starting really starting in early June, but starting in good numbers late June. They run through July. King season closes August 1 for the spawn and stuff. And just like all other Pacific salmon, they spawn and then they die after they spawn. And then shortly after the kings, we get the sockeye salmon run, also known as reds. That's our most prolific run. Like I bet you last year they stopped counting the salmon. We've got a little salmon counting station on the Naknek, and they stopped counting the salmon. I think at like 4.5 million last year. And we had about 2 weeks after that where we were getting huge runs every day, like 50 to 150,000 fish a day. So we had to have been well up over 5 million fish in the river last year. And honestly, it was almost too many. Um, so then,
That must it must smell incredibly bad when they start to die. Like, are you
no,
fishing around like terrible smell?
no, honestly, not really.
No.
There's some places that you'll smell them a little bit, but it's not like, you're not fishing around like an overwhelmingly stinky dead fish smell or anything. A lot of stuff eating them.
Yeah.
There's everything's eating them. The fish are eating them. The dollies, the char, the grayling, the rainbows, foxes, fox, bears, wolves,
Yep.
everything's in there just chowing down. And it's really not bad. Like you'll see a lot of, salmon remnants around, but definitely not what you would think it would be. Not like you'd see in the, if you're on a salmon stream in the Great Lakes or something.
Okay.
And then following that, we get pinks. Now, pinks run every other year in big numbers, but you always have some pinks. They're the
I didn't
smallest of the
realize that.
salmon. Yeah, and it's not like that everywhere. It's kind of strange. But some rivers, some regions the pinks will run on even years, and some they'll run on odd years, and then some will get pink runs every year. Um, but we're on even years, and the numbers of pinks for whatever reason all across Bristol Bay have been down the last couple few pink years. Like we used to get just tons of them, hordes of them, and now it's more like you catch some, and if you want to target them, you can go get them. But in the old days, man, on a pink year, it seemed like you'd catch a pink left and
Yeah.
right. You couldn't even not catch a pink if you were trying to. Not that I'm complaining, but but anyway, and then chums come in about the same time. They'll come in some with the kings in early July, but mostly they'll kind of overlap with late kings and early silvers. Like you'll get them late July or early mid August. They're pretty cool looking fish. They've got big tiger stripes on
Yep.
them. Big
They're
hook
real
jaw,
cool.
fight hard. Yeah, they're really cool fish. They're our second or third largest salmon. They're right in there, about the same size as a silver, but
Pound
definitely
pound for
spoiled.
pound for pound, like a 10-pound fish versus a 10-pound fish, which one fights the best?
They honestly all fight pretty different. I would say if you had to talk about just straight pulling, probably a pink salmon fights the hardest. They're the smallest. They've got a big hump on them, and so they get a little bit of that bluegill effect going, especially if there's some good river current. They're really strong. Kings are also really, they'll have some good runs. They really kind of dog you. They pull down, but they jump a little bit. And then silvers are often thought of as the most fun fight, but it's not necessarily the strongest. They're just the most acrobatic, I would say. But again, sockeye are right there. So I mean, they all like fight similar, but a little different. Pretty comparable.
Yeah, but of course, everybody wants that 50-pound king.
Yeah, I mean the kings are awesome. They're my favorite to target. I love fishing. I love fishing kings on fly and stuff. But
swinging big stuff for them. Is that your favorite, swinging?
Swinging and stripping both. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. So what's the average? I shouldn't say the average. Like, what's a big king in your river?
You back?
Yep.
All right, lost you for a second there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what's a big king in your river?
It varies. That's one of the things that I like so much about fishing for kings compared to the other salmon is like all the other salmon to some extent, you're looking at cookie cutter fish. Like we'll take silver, for example. In a silver, you're going to catch, you might catch a 3-pounder and you might catch a 15-pounder. But for the most part, your silvers are going to be like 7 to 12. So they're nice fish. They're good fish. They fight hard. They're strong. But to some extent, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of fight the same. And that's where kings are cool to me. Is it's more like it's more like trout fishing or Atlantic salmon fishing. To where you might catch an 18-incher on one cast, which we call a jack king. You call it a gross. They come in, they spawn, they die with the big ones. A lot of people don't know that, but those are all sexually mature male king salmon. They come up, spawn, die. So you might catch an 18-incher on one cast, and then the next cast you might catch a 40-pounder. And you get all sizes in between. Like, you'll get 5-pound, 10-pound, 15-pound, 20-pound. I mean, all the way through the spectrum. I don't really weigh them, but the biggest one that I've ever measured and netted for a client is 48 inches.
It's a good sized fish.
Yeah, pretty big. I mean, I'd say that's probably mid 40 pounds. We've had a couple of the guides who work for us up there have caught them a little bit bigger than that.
You get lots of
one that they figured was up over 50 pounds a couple years ago, but not commonly. Like so for
you get lots of 30-pounders.
Yeah, we get a lot of 20s. We get a lot of 30s. A 30 is what we would call like a big fish. A 20 is a nice fish. A 30 is a big fish. And then you get into that 40 to 45-pound range, and those are like
true trophies.
Those are your true trophies. Yeah, those are the big fish of the guide's year type thing.
Yeah. And it's nice that you got those. So everybody's striving for that 40-pounder, right? But there's nothing to shy away from 20 and 30-pounders, man. I mean, we don't get many 20-pounders here on the East Coast. Quebec gets some. There are some rivers in Labrador, and there's very few rivers in Newfoundland that get them. And even those rivers, they're few and far between. Like one of the rivers I guide on, Harry's River, like every year they put like a 25 to 30-pounder through. Maybe every couple of years there'll be a 30-pounder, but they're really, really, really rare, and it'll only be one. Like they have a counter, so they know every fish that goes through. So 20-pounders, like there's a lot of people think they catch 20-pounders.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with anything else,
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that catch, 40-pound, 50-pound kings that don't quite make it, or permit, or bonefish. Like, how many 10-pound
It's
bonefish do you see that are 6 pounds? You know?
lots. Yeah. But I got to say, though, I have seen 10-pound bonefish. I haven't hooked one, but I've seen bonefish in Cuba. Like, there's one particular area that I go down there, and they don't eat as easily as the 3 and 5 pounders that are cruising with them. That's the problem. You end up hooking the smaller fish because they're more aggressive, as you know. But I mean, I've seen some really big bonefish down there, man. Like, wow. Like, you look at it, it's like, that a lemon shark? And the guy's like, no, bonefish. I'm like, that's a bone. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I know, man.
yeah. So, how's your season shaping up? You got many openings?
No, not really any openings. Like, we're just crazy jam busy,
Good.
for a couple reasons, but one, we had so many people roll over from last year due to COVID. We were open, unlike
Same
unlike a
with
lot
me.
of unlike a lot of places. We did open. We opened for the whole season, and we ended up with probably 60% rollover, like 60% of our guests that we had booked in, March rolled over to 2021.
Yeah.
And we ended up rebooking some of that, and getting some new people in, and which is good because we don't normally have like a whole lot of openings. So we've had just a lot of groups that have contacted us and wanted to book that we just haven't had room for. And last year we did manage to fit a lot of new people in, and then this year all those new people are wanting to rebook, and all the people that rolled over were already booked, and we already had people booked a year in advance for 2021 before that. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a really busy year for us.
Yeah, it's like me. I'm in the exact same situation. Like, I had, I didn't have any new people last year because of the border closures, but like I had people booked for 2021, and then all the rollover, and I got a few openings now for 2021. But again, that's all hinging on the border opening. But like, I've got a list of guys that I got their names that say, the day you hear the border opens, or when it's going to open, send me an email. I'll book right away. Right. So, I mean, I am potentially booked. I'm just, it's all hinging on that border opening. Right. And there's some people say, oh, Dave, you're crazy. It's never going to open this year. It's not going to happen. And you can't think like that. Like, I'm looking at how
can't think
fast,
like that.
well, I mean, you guys are getting the vaccine rolled out in the States like a lot faster than us. So if the vaccine is, the save all end all, then if you have the vaccine, there should be no problem with you traveling into Canada. Our government shouldn't have a problem with that, as far as I can understand how vaccines are supposed to work, right? But
yeah, man,
anyways,
if they don't open it up with that, you guys are screwed. They're never going to let you do anything ever again.
no, it's pretty much a done deal then, for sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, enough about that nonsense. So, what else? Do you guys got steelhead there?
No, we don't get any steelhead. It's honestly pretty weird, because you go over just a little way across the peninsula to the east, and they get steelhead, and then they get steelhead on Kodiak Island. They get steelhead down on the Aleutians, but for whatever reason, there's a magical line in the Aleutians where there's no steelhead anymore. And then you go above that line, and there's no rainbows. And then you go up again, and then all of a sudden you have rainbows. So there's literally like, I guess it's 3 or 4, major river drainages where there's no steelhead and no rainbows. And then you go up above, and then there's rainbows again.
That's
Why?
crazy.
I don't know. And there's a beautiful lake. So, I mean, it's not the only one either, but I'm going to take Bisharoff Lake as an example. It's a beautiful lake, second largest lake in the state of Alaska, right? It's got gorgeous streams that flow out, great out tributary, great creeks and rivers that flow into it. Gets massive salmon runs. No trout. Not a single rainbow in that stupid lake. It gets Dolly Varden. There's Arctic char. There's pike. There's grayling. There's whitefish. No rainbows.
Have you
Why?
ever talked to any
No idea.
biologists? They're
I ask people all the time too. I'll ask guides and biologists and park service, and nobody can give me any good answer that makes any sense to me. So I don't think anybody knows why. But if you do, let me know.
Yeah, leave some comments in the video here, or reach out to James there and myself, because I'd be curious as to know too.
Yeah, and I mean, and so some people might make a guess and say, well, it's too cold. The water temperature isn't right. It's not true. It's the same water temp. Those creeks have the same water temps. The lake has the same water temp. It's got great structure. It's got deep. It's 1,000 feet deep, probably. I don't know, because I don't think anybody's ever checked it, but it's super deep lake. Rock shoals all the way from 5 feet to however many hundreds of feet.
Sounds like it has everything, right?
It has everything you could ever want, and yet not a rainbow.
Now, what's the salmon runs like on the rivers that have the steelhead in comparison to what you have?
Smaller. Yeah. So the
like
rivers
considerably smaller?
Yes, considerably smaller. So you could make a pretty strong argument to that's why there's not steelhead. I mean, there are, so the steelhead streams mostly don't have
overtaken on the spawning grounds or something, maybe. I don't know.
But they do have, some of the streams have great K runs. Some of the streams have great silver runs. They mostly don't have huge sockeye runs. Like some of the streams get some sockeye, but nothing like you see in Bristol Bay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you guys, your family has two camps. So you run the Katmai, and that's the upriver section?
Yeah. So no, it's downstream. So we have one that's kind of it's right on the edge of where tide water comes up on the Naknek. So literally it is the perfect dividing line on the river. You go upstream from the lodge, 1 minute, and you're in great trout water, and you go downstream from the lodge and you're in salmon water. Now they do overlap a little bit, but for the most part, you got sea lice, chrome, salmon moving in on every tide downstream, and on the upstream side, you have rainbow trout, and so it's a really good central location for us to fish. Both chrome, salmon, silvers, kings, whatever, moving in on the tides, and then to go upstream and be on some really, really good trout fishing. Now,
I'm confused. I thought you didn't have trout fishing there.
What was that?
I said I'm confused. I thought you said there was no rainbow trout in that.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Sorry for the confusion. No, that's a different river down south. We have a lot of trout. Yeah. So where we're at, it's really kind of the stand apart for our drainage. Like the Naknek River drainage has, prolific salmon, great, good runs of kings, good runs of silvers, millions and millions of sockeye salmon. And then we have almost unarguably the best trophy rainbow fishing in the state of Alaska. Like you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who works and guides in Alaska that would argue even that their river would produce more big fish than our river. And that's pretty rare. When you can get competing river guides and lodge owners to say, no, that's the spot if you want to go get a big one, it's pretty good.
Yeah. You got something.
Yeah, you got something. So, I mean, the numbers of, in Alaska, it's kind of like you guys with a 20-pound salmon. In Alaska, the benchmark for trout is a 30-inch rainbow trout. And for whatever reason, pick an arbitrary number, your 30-inch rainbow trout, that's your trophy. And Alaska has a great reputation for producing those, but there's very few rivers that actually produce them, at least with any kind of consistency. I mean, some of the rivers up north, they get one occasionally, but 1 or 2 a year. the Kenai produces quite a few. That's a good river, great river. They have awesome trout fishing. The downside of that is it's a on the road system. It's a busy stream. It's very popular. A lot of the fish have little kind of torn up faces and beat up marks from being caught. And then you go to the Kvichak River. The Kvichak River would be our closest competitor, if you will. It's just north. It's only about a 30-minute, 40-minute float plane ride from us to get up there. We see Kvichak guides all the time, and they see us. That would be the closest one, but still, even there, like if you were to talk to most guides up there, they would say, "Hey, we've got phenomenal fishing. Our river is better than the Naknek. We've got better fishing, but they're going to catch more 30-inch fish. We'll get more. They would say we'll get more 22 to 26-inch fish, and we get some 28s. But you go to a great lodge on the Kvichak and a great guide, and I think last year some of those lodges only caught one fish over 30 inches. We'll have days on the Naknek where we'll catch more than people would believe you to say.
And these are just native brown trout that don't go to the ocean.
Rainbow trout. Yeah. Yep. So we have they're lake fed. So we've got a 45-mile long lake that our river comes out of. It's the outflow of this massive lake that goes down into Bristol Bay. And those trout live in that lake and feed on, sculpins and, whatnot, normal bait fish. But primarily they feed on the salmon smolt, the salmon fry. So all those tributaries from the chain of lakes and the creeks that flow to Naknek Lake, salmon spawn, fry get washed down, and they spend a year in that lake, and the rainbow trout swim around and eat them all year. And then they'll chase salmon, they'll smell some eggs flowing in from the creeks, they'll bump up from the lake into the creeks and the rivers to feed, they'll come down into the Naknek to chase salmon smolt, and fry, and eat salmon eggs and flesh and spawn and all that good stuff. So it's kind of like a steelhead run, kind of like the Great Lakes steelhead, if you will, to where you get.
It's a migratory rainbow.
They're migratory rainbows. Exactly. I mean, that's spot on. It's what they are. They're out in the lake. They'll migrate, way up from a creek over here, down to the main river, maybe back over to a creek in the lake. The difference is they migrate on a spawning pattern and on a feeding pattern, not just one or the other. So we'll get chrome fish that'll move into those rivers and creeks throughout the year at various stages. You'll have chrome fish moving in, moving out, moving in, feeding, maybe spend half the summer there all summer. They'll come in for the fall to feed, and then some of those fish will winter over and then spawn in the spring.
That's crazy. So so you guys got I didn't realize that you had that trout fishery there too. I thought it was just pretty much salmon.
No, yeah. So we've got a really spectacular trout fishery. About 8 weeks of our season is exclusively for trout.
And how long is your season total?
Our season
from the 1st of June.
Yeah, so our season opens June 8th. That's our trout opener on most of the major rivers there. There's a few of the smaller creeks that are open prior to that, but we open on June 7th. First day of fishing is June 8th, and then this year I'll be operating until October 23rd. Wow,
it must be getting pretty cold up there by then.
It can be, yeah. I mean, it's steelhead fishing at that point. You're out there, and it could snow.
Salmon runs done by then, right?
Salmon runs done. Yeah. So we're pretty much done fishing salmon by the middle of September.
Okay.
So
and what's the last
for the most part
salmon in September?
So,
what species is that? Silvers. Okay. Yeah.
So
once the silvers are done, then you're back into rainbows.
Yeah. So you'll still have some spawning fish even well into October on some of the streams. You'll get some spawning sockeyes, some spawning silvers. Like Brooks, for instance, still have spawning fish, some of the other streams. And then, but but there's no more fresh fish coming in. We're done fishing for salmon. And at the end of the time frame there's really not any left. They're all dead and gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're ready to move on to something else anyways. Like as they start dying, the fishing gets slower and slower and slower. So you want to target something that's going to be more upbeat all day. So, and the trout fishing then is just ramping up, or is it tough fishing then?
So we're pretty lucky to have really good trout fishing all year. But we typically say that our peak trout fishing is the first couple weeks of the season there. That's our opener. That's more like traditional streamer, dry fly, mousing, like you'd see in, Western trout stream type stuff. Getting good numbers of fish, but not like quite as big as you'd get in the late fall there. And then throughout the summer, we've got some really cool stuff going on. We've got trout chasing sockeye salmon, smolt crashing on top like stripers or tuna, birds diving. Like you're talking about looking for birds earlier, but you really kind of do. You see birds diving, you'll see fish boiling, and you throw a streamer in there and strip it as fast as you can, and they about rip the rod out of your hands.
So you guys aren't really doing a match the hatch kind of thing. You guys are just throwing big flies and
yeah. Our rainbow trout are really different than most of the lower 48 rainbow trout that you encounter. One, they're 100% wild. They've never been altered in any way. They're the same fish that have been there forever. And that makes a difference, man. You can tell when you go up and you hook your first one. It's you hook an 18-inch fish, and it happens every single week. But your client will look an 18-incher, it's burning line. He's in his backhand, and he's like, "I've got a whale." Oh, it's 18-inch. It's not a 30, it's 18. Calm down.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. So then as the season progresses, the salmon start to spawn. Like you get some king spawn in. Usually the first to spawn, even though they're not the first to come in, are the chums and the pinks. Then you get king spawn in, and the sockeye are spawning, silver is spawning. So fishing a lot of beads. That would be our match to hatch season. Really the only one that we have. You get a bunch of eggs rolling. Each salmon has a little different size egg and a little different color. So you'll match the egg based upon the salmon that you're fishing behind. And,
so is that style of fishing, like we don't do that here for Atlantic salmon. We swing and dead drift predominantly is our method. When you're fishing these eggs, are you fishing those the same way you would fish, say, a nymph?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly like fishing a nymph. You're just dead drifting an egg, just like you would a pheasant tail. And we do a little bit of nymphing too, but mostly it's like streamers and then eggs and then streamers again. And then sprinkled in, we'll do some dry fly stuff, some mousing stuff, some little bit of nymphing.
So are the rainbow trout, do they move out of the rivers when these 5 million salmon come in? Like, are they like, okay, this is too overcrowded, and they move out, and like you can't really catch trout then?
They can. Like that's why I was saying it was a little too much this year. So like some of the streams, particularly like the smaller creeks and smaller rivers, like you'll actually get so many salmon in there that the trout will get bullied out to an extent. And the ones that are there will be tucked up in in a log jam in a corner out of the way somewhere. So you'll be waiting. We walk down the river for 500 yards, you'll not see a trout. There'll be a sea of red salmon. And then you'll look at this little stick, and there'll be 50 trout stacked in there. But for the most part, on a normal salmon year, no. The trout are in there when the salmon are in. Particularly when the salmon are spawning, the trout get right up in there, and they're in amongst the millions of salmon just getting their fill of eggs.
Okay, so they're backing down out of the lake when the salmon start to spawn, and then they're backing down out into the river and then going up into these tributaries and stuff. Okay, I got you. When they're onto the eggs, can you catch them mostly? Will they still take a top water, or are they pretty much feeding whatever's drifting by their mouth?
You broke up a little bit there, but I think I got the gist of it. So it's okay. It's probably my internet. So when the salmon eggs are flowing hot and heavy, it's pretty much that's what they're eating. Like they do really key in, just like you would see on a trout stream if there was a really prolific hatch going. If there's a really, really great, blanket caddis hatch, you're probably not going to be, throwing streamers or
Gotcha.
whatever, hopper. You're probably not going to throw a hopper. But not to say that you can't, like you could, if there's a blanket caddis hatch, you can catch fish on a hopper, but it's not going to be what you want to do. And it's kind of the same thing with the eggs. Like you could throw a streamer or you could throw a dry fly when the eggs are rolling and you probably will catch something, but do you want to catch 50 fish or you want to catch 5 fish?
That's the odds are stacked against you. That's the same thing Atlantic salmon.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say you're not going to catch an Atlantic salmon in June on a bomber, but your chances are a whole lot better of catching them in June on a wet fly and using your bomber in July when the water temperature gets up a little more, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
same thing.
I just wasn't sure, like salmon, our salmon don't die, so they go back out, they come back in and spawn again, and our salmon also aren't feeding when they're in a river, so that's why I thought, like, okay, so with the trout, is there much different? Because I'm not a trout guy. Like, I've guided at some of the nicest trout camps in Labrador over the years, and like where they don't measure brook trout, they weigh them in pounds. Like you don't catch a 24-inch brook trout. It was like, no, it was 6.5 pounds. Like so and I, on my day off, I wouldn't even go fishing. Like I'm not a trout guy at all.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
So I wasn't sure, like, where these fish are so aggressive, and I wasn't sure if, like, if they're feeding on these eggs, if they would take mice or a streamer, or if they totally tune right in on that. And I guess it's what trout normally do. Like you said, they match the hatch. Did you lose me again? Oh, I think we froze up. You there?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
But so they do, but they're aggressive feeders. They're opportunistic. They'll eat whatever is presented well in front of them for the most part. But what you see is when the salmon spawn is going really full tilt, there's so many eggs in the water that they're not necessarily aggressively feeding anymore because they're so full. Like they'll actually overeat to the extent that their bellies are bulging like this, and you can see their gills are just stuffed full of eggs. Like actually see their whole mouths full of eggs. So
that's crazy.
They'll just so they'll eat, then they'll continue feeding to some extent, but they'll not move very much. Like so they'll sit there and the eggs are just coming in and they're kind of just doing this and eating eggs. So if you strip a streamer by them over their head, they're like, why would I bother?
Yeah.
They're like, that looks like a lot of work. They're the guy that's sitting on the couch eating stuffing Doritos into his face. He's not gonna go outside and catch a fish when he's got a bag of Doritos sitting here.
That's been me since last March, dude. I gotta get on a plane and get down there to Belize and get out there. I would be happy with coming down to Belize and spending 2 weeks with you and just pulling the boat for exercise.
Just doing something. Go outside, go fishing.
I think I lost for a second.
Yeah, I'm back. Hey, Sage, are you doing stuff? I'm totally breaking out.
I'd come down there. Yeah, I'd come down there for 2 weeks and pull your boat around just for exercise.
Yeah, heck yeah, man, do it. Fly it. When they let you fly on down.
I think I could fly out. It's just they make everything such a pain in the ass to come home.
Right. Yeah, never let you back.
Yeah. Well, they got to let you back. There's just hoops that you got to go through. That's all. But anyways, I'll definitely get down there fishing with you someday. Belize is on my bucket list. Belize is on there, but so is the Seychelles. Have you done that yet?
I have not. I would love to. I'm not real excited about the prospect of paying them $15,000 or whatever it is these days to go do it. But but it's high on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be it'd be one of them trips I'd like to go, and I think I'd like to go and spend 2 weeks there, 1 week of
Yeah.
fishing and 1 week just hanging out there. Because I mean, you're traveling so far to get there, anyways. You might as well make a vacation of it. And
Yeah.
you're lucky because your lady fishes. My lady doesn't fish at all. Like she has absolutely zero interest in fishing, but she never asked me not to go as long as I never ask her to go.
Well, I mean, that's not the worst deal. At
Oh,
least she
no.
lets you go.
Yeah. And I mean, she's come out with me. She's been out with me a few times in Cuba on the boat. But like, again, she doesn't fish. She just comes out and, she'll bring a few beer with her or something for the day and relax, and she'll work on her tan there instead of by the pool. But yeah, you're lucky because you could, you and your lady could jump on a plane and go over there and spend 2 weeks over there, and one week fishing together and the other week vacation. So that would be nice. Maybe
Yeah.
someday we'll plan that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't think she wouldn't let me do a trip that didn't involve fishing or hunting. It's like fishing or hunting. If those two things are out, like I'm pretty sure we're not going. So,
That's a bonus. That's real good for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
good.
appreciate having you on here today. If anybody's looking to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you or your website or?
Yeah. So you can find me on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, or also at the website. It's just katmaitrophlodge.com.
Yeah, and
And
I'll
then,
have those in the description.
yeah.
I'll have links in the description for you. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, I hope you
Well,
enjoy the rest of your day in Belize.
yeah, thanks. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well. Go do
Uh,
something, maybe. I don't know,
yeah,
like go for a
it,
run.
it's steel blue sky out there, but I think the -16 is going to keep me in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Jim. I really do, and I'll be talking to you, and hopefully a few people will be checking out your website and checking out some of the cool things you guys are doing up there, because it's definitely a cool spot. I know a few people that's been there. A couple close friends of both of ours speak very highly of that lodge, and they're usually annual visits. So people should definitely check it out. You guys are doing some cool stuff up there.
Yeah. Well, thanks, David. I'd love to come catch up with you one of these days too. Go catch a salmon.
Open door, man. We got some very prolific striped bass here. There's a lot of them schoolies, but we got a lot of fish in the 20-pound range too. And the Atlantic salmon thing, I'd love to have you over anytime.
I appreciate it, David.
For sure. All right. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot, Jim, and have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.